Que paso, YouTube? Archman here, and let's see if I can mess with my volume a little bit. Hopefully that's good for you guys. Yeah, so the title of the video, as you will see, is Has Chris Reeve Knives Quality Gone Downhill? I guess first and foremost, I would say, all things considered, I don't really believe it has necessarily. This is my oldest Sabenza that I currently have. A lot of you guys who subscribe to my content know that I have my first Sabenza was circa 2001 and with a regular Sabenza. And I do think the regular Sabenza has a cool, like, je ne sais quoi to it. It's a funky, cool look to it, but I'm not a collector. I'm a user. So all things considered, this is kind of going to be the oldest knives that I'm really interested in. Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me whenever I think of, evidence, like has it gone downhill? The first thing that I would say is not necessarily, right? But here's the thing. The person whose name is on the product is no longer there. And a lot of people would say, well, that doesn't matter or whatever it is. And man, the fanboys are thick. My God. It's unfortunate because, like, when you're dealing with Chris Reeve Knives, man, there are people who are just downright rude, just like, you're like, hey, my $500 knife is, like on any of the groups. I don't want to call out any group in particular, but I belong to most of them. And man, it's such a bummer, man, because you're like, my $500 knife has an off-center blade, and people are like, yeah, and what of it? Is it rubbing? It's like, dude, that is way beyond the point. That is way beside the point. The perfectly centered blade, that shit should start and be unacceptable anywhere beyond like $80, I think. You know what I mean? That's just the way I feel about it. But yeah, the hard fact is that, like, Chris Reeve, whose name is on the knife, whose name is on the box, whose name is on all that stuff, he's not there anymore. So like that alone is it's 100% fact that passion is not there, right? The passion to make the product, by God, it's my name that's on this and it's going to be the best and blah, blah, blah. And passion or drive is all it's in the eye of the beholder, right? So like, you can't really define it. You can't really put a pin on it. So another person who works at Chris Reeve Knives, some kind of legacy type person, might be like, oh no, I do have the same passion. But that's not a fact, as a matter of fact, like, all signs point to that not being accurate, because even like, one person's like the most passion they've ever felt in their life might be not that passionate, so like, it's just because they feel passionate doesn't mean they are, right? Because it's not something that it's not tangible, so that's just like the cut and dry of it from my perspective, is that's already going to take it down just one slight notch, right? And when you're talking about a company like Chris Reeve Knives, who does like shoot for the target tolerances of Chris Reeve Knives, that slop is very minimal, right? I mean, so like, it's not like it's, oh God, suddenly it's Benchmade quality or something like that. And a lot of us know, take a little sip of coffee here, the Benchmade quality, in my opinion, is just like, brr. It seems like every company is trying to figure out little tricks to masquerade as quality, but really kind of like make their production processes, what would be a good way to put it? Make their production processes less fallible, right? Like, where they can like cheat stuff in. I can't really wrap my head around it, but like, for instance, like Spyderco going with like stepped pivots, seems like, it's like, well, fuck, man, like, that's like, how can that be easier to make? I can't really wrap my head around it, but I do believe that that's true. Chris, and it's not like even when Chris was at the company, that they were infallible. It's my opinion 100% that like the Nums On, I'm pretty sure Chris even said this, but the Nums On was exactly that. Like, I mean, you look at the Nums On, and there's almost nothing that can go wrong with it. You got like, I'll use the actually Nkosi would be better example. So you've got like, and the Nums On is even more simple than the Nkosi. I just don't like the lines on the Nums On. I owned an Nums On for like 1 week and was like, yep, nope, not for me. Which is I frown upon personally. I should give it another shot. But so what you have here is the only thing that's really a solid constant that can't be altered is the rear I'm retarded. The rear spacer, handle spacer, back spacer, right? And everything else kind of can float, right? And the the farther away this constant is from the pivot, the the less tight the tolerances have to be, right? Because it's clamped down here. This all floats, right? So that you just put this wherever it goes. The stop pin on the Nkosi is completely floating. Um, the tolerances are just unbelievable. Like you take apart a Nkosi, it's hard to get it apart because just how perfectly parallel all the hardware is in the scale. Like they got that shit dialed in. There's some things that seem to be like perfect, you know, but then there's other things that might not be. Regardless, though, those I wouldn't even say cut corners. Those smooth corners are uh, a cool idea. You know, a really good idea. As a matter of fact, like I would say the Umnum or the Nkosi is just a fantastic overall concept. I personally feel like the Sabenzas. Unfortunately, I don't have a inlaid large Sabenza to compare it to. Oh, you know what? But I can do smalls. So this is a better comparison. I personally think that the lines on the Sabenza are just like aesthetically far more pleasing for me than the Nkosi is. I just like the simple manufacture, you know. But the thing is, the I'm not. It's all subjective. I'm not a huge fan of I'm not a huge fan of that pivot on the old Umnums On, and I'm also not a huge fan of the pivot on the Nkosi or the new Umnums On. And the reason is because the reason I don't really love it, maybe I could illustrate this. The reason I don't love it, and I think they should go to the whatever it is, the 5/64 or whatever. I think all of their hardware should be the little Allen wrench that the Sabenzas use, and that mainly is because I think, and this happened with the first run of 25s, which I did have one of the first 25s. I'm not sure if I reported on YouTube of the hardware breaking, but essentially, it doesn't really matter how big the at some point it doesn't really matter how big the hardware is or how big the pivot is, because they've drilled out the whole thing, right? It's not like a Strider one where you can see through it. The Strider one would be much more durable, but but what they've done is they've created like the pin, right? And then they've drilled a hole through it. And the same with the head, right? The male part. So the male part has like, I mean, it's way drilled through there. So at some point they're removing a shit ton of material from that, and I think it's too much of a compromise. If they would just take this big hole, whatever this fucking big ass Allen is, that's in the large or in the Nkosi's pivot, and make it smaller. It's not like you need a big fucking Allen wrench. You're not torquing this thing way down. As a matter of fact, with an Nkosi, you're not torquing it down at all, or with an Nums On. So there's no. It's just that's a silly thing to do. Like there's just no. It makes the knife less good. I mean, at the cost of somehow somebody thinks that a bigger Allen looks cooler. It's definitely not better. But kind of keeping with the point of has Chris Reeve Knives quality gone down? So I'm sitting here with one, two, three, four, five, six Chris Reeve knives in front of me, and I've got two Sebenza 21s, right? A 2009 or 2011 Sebenza 21, and then I've got a Sebenza 31, and then I've got a large and a small Nkosi. This is like a 2020. Pretty sure this is a 2020 or maybe late 2019. I can't remember what this one is, but it's the first run of micarta inlaid Nkosis. So probably from 2016, something like that, 2017. But when I'm looking at these knives and what kind of people have been asking me, oh, how's the and then Impinda, of course, people have been asking me, how's the Impinda coming along? And the truth is, it actually has been breaking in really well. This has been EDC for me with the riding shotgun, the Ultra Tech. But man, it's been really, really good, surprisingly good. But what I wanted to get at here is I've got 6 Chris Reeve knives in front of me. And how many of those, this is fucked, man. And I'm not trying to shit on Chris Reeve Knives at all, at all. It is my favorite company. I'm just like, they could do better. And we can get better. You know, that's all there is to it. But I got 6 Chris Reeve knives in front of me. And guess how many of them have needed tweaking? 4 of them have needed tweaking. 4 of them have needed, 3 have been sent back to the manufacturer, and 1, my beloved, which I posted on Instagram this morning at Archmang with a G. I did some tweaking on this one because I was just like, I don't want Chris Reeve knives to fuck this up and put washers with holes in there. Like I love. That's another thing, and I just can't harp on that enough because like the perforated washers are horse shit. Like there is nothing good about them. Nothing good about them. There's burrs all over those fucking holes. There's they hold all kinds of bullshit and get caught in those things. It is absolutely, not only is it not good, it is a slap in the face of what a Chris Reeve knife is supposed to be. It is bullshit. And I know that, you know, it was Chris Reeve that did that. So again, coming back to, has their quality gone down? Like what's questionable, what's not, what's desirable for the end user, what's fucking marketing gimmicking, you know? And those holes are absolutely fucking not useful. So but yeah, every 4 of these knives have had to go back to the manufacturer, or I've had to tweak, and I'll just kind of go over that real quick. And the reason these 2 haven't, it's not because I'm a fucking jerk off and I just am like hard to please. It's not that at all. It really is just like, this is not what I fucking ordered, or what I paid for. I think the reason these 2, they probably should exhibit some of the same shit that the other knives, or potentially exhibit some of the things that other knives do, but they don't show it because of just the simplicity of the design of the Nkosi, right? So these are the 2 knives that have not had to go back. And man, I tell you what, I've only done a couple of videos on the small Nkosi, and it's tiny and it's just weird little knife, but it is it's a cool knife. This is a really good knife. The only reservation I have from 100% recommending the Nkosi for me is that it's kind of ugly. That's all. but it's a badass knife. Sebenzas, I think, are gorgeous. So the Nkosis are good. The 31, as some of you guys know, did have to go back because of side-to-side play. The reason I didn't try to adjust the 31 is because of the stepped stop pin. And I was like, if there's side-to-side play, that's indicative of the pivot bushing being too tall, right? If it's a cylinder and it's too tall, so here's my microphone, whoop, it's too tall. Obviously the diameter is good. And so what happens is, because that's too tall, this can actually wiggle because it's not compressed by the washers. The tang is not compressed by the washers. So in my mind, if they sand down the pivot bushing, then also if it's a perfect knife, then that means they have to respec or figure out if they need to take the stepped part of the stop pin down to match that, right? They did not do that. They told me that all they did was sand the pivot bushing, which hopefully that means that this pivot bushing was wider or taller than the stepped portion of the stop pin, and they sanded it down to match. But the truth is, they didn't. They sanded it down too much. And so when they sent this knife back to me, and I guess this is acceptable. It is acceptable because it functions fine. But if I tighten down, and this is the whole reason to have a Sabenza, or one of the whole reasons to have a Sabenza in a lot of people's mind, if I tighten down this uh, the pivot, it cements the knife shut. So they took down too much on that. But again, this knife had to go back to the factory. This small Sabenza, I think I've also reported, had to go back to the factory. This is a 2011 small 21. This one was early on in the Idaho made stamp days. I bought this one right before the price hike from, I think it was the price hike that went from 305 to like 330, and now these are 350, but I think that's what it was. And the only reason I bought it was because, like, fuck, man, I should snag one before the price hike. So I got this one from peasandcorn.com. Regardless, though, 2011 Sabenza, and this one had the most significant problems of any Chris Reeve knife that I've had. Starting off, and this knife had a lot of wear. This is a major EDC, but they refurbished it whenever I sent it back. Starting off, this had the best action of any Sabenza I've ever had. Crank the pivot bushing down, perfect, glassy, smooth, not too smooth, but not too much resistance. It was just a fantastic knife. I didn't do shit to it, but at some point, it started developing up and down blade play. I just continued using it. And then one day I just kind of was like, oh, you know what? Let's see how bad this is. And I literally just kind of pressed on the spine of the blade and quick could just close it like a slip joint. I mean, just like, oh shit. So I kind of determined, hey, if this is a locking knife and I can close it that easily, I think that's dangerous. Anyway, this knife had to go back, not for blade, not just for blade play, up and down blade play, but I could easily overcome the lock, right? So I don't know exactly what that means. I would say because they're all kind of customized and there's a slant on the tang, and I don't think there's a slant at all on the lock bar, something was going on, and it was just pushing it right up off the slope of the blade tang. So I don't know if that means that slope is wrong or if over time it what happened. I don't know what happened. But anyway, so now this Sabenza has like a 2011 side and a 2000. So that's the 11 side. And then the lock bar side is 2018. So that's kind of crazy. So if I ever end up selling this knife, people are going to be like, well, that's fucked. But anyway, we're just kind of going through them. 2011, catastrophic, problem. And again, I don't know if that was because of use. Surely you're supposed to be able to use these knives, or if that was something that just kind of was from the factory right off the bat and just kind of revealed itself over time through some kind of issue in the machining. Large Sabenza 21, basically I had to, this one started showing some side-to-side play, and because the stop pin has a stop pin sleeve instead of a shouldered stop pin, if a Sabenza 21 starts to show side-to-side blade play, you at home you can alter, as long as you go slow, be very patient. You might be assembling and reassembling the knife a lot while you do this, but it's better than your knife being at Chris Reeve Knives for 2 to 6 weeks or whatever. But if you start to get some of that blade play, you can take some super, super, super fine sandpaper, make sure it's on a dead flat surface, and rub your stop pin in a figure-8 pattern to shorten the tube. Did I say stop pin? So you could do the stop pin and the bushing. Anyway, regardless, I elected to do that because I was worried that it was possible that Chris Reeve Knives might fuck it up a little bit, not not to talk shit on them or anything. Anybody's fallible, and end up replacing my washers. So I didn't want that to happen. But anyway, that one had to go back. And then the Impinda also had to go back. It turns out they claim they did nothing to the Impinda, so I guess it didn't have to go back. And it does seem to be wearing in quite nicely. It seems a little finicky as far as like getting shit in the action. So every now and then I'll feel something will get in there and kind of start to foul up the smoothness. I can't really call it smoothness because it's not smooth, but but it is getting better. Like the Impinda is absolutely getting better. So long story short here is Chris Reeve Knives Quality going downhill? Well, I would say, man, it's all just in the eye of the beholder. You know, there's a lot of people who, I mean, let's face it, I would say the majority of Chris Reeve knives, 50%, right? 50% of these knives never get used, right? That's got to be true. So 50% of Chris Reeve knives just go right into collections and don't ever get used. And then there's probably also a percentage of the knives that, I mean, I know like rich dudes who buy a knife and fucking use that thing like they found it in a parking lot and don't give a shit about tolerances, don't give a shit about blade play. All they want is to know that they fucking paid $500 for their knife, you know, and or $700 or $1,500 or $2,000, you know. But I knew a welder guy. He took his knife out to like shave steel off of I can't even remember what we were doing. I think we were doing some sconces or something like that. And he's like scraping the steel with like a $1,500 William Henry, you know, like Damascus, you know, with fucking gems and pearls and shit in the handle. And I was like, hey man, like, why are you using that knife for that? And the funny thing is too, it also is missing like screws from the clip, so the clip was all floppy, and I'm just like, dude, and he's like, it's a fucking knife, you know, and kind of crazy. But so there's that too. There's a lot of users like that too. The funny thing is, like, those of us who are like enthusiasts, those of us that like post pictures of our knives on Instagram, those of us who even watch YouTube or even subscribe to any kind of like other knife guy, we are the minority by far, you know. So we're looking at a small sample of like evidence, you know. So I don't know. It's impossible to say. That's the thing. That's the real message here. Is Chris Reeve Knives Quality going downhill? It's impossible to say. I would say I guess I would say the 31, you know, as far as like, it doesn't really exhibit the same, you know, cutting down on manufacturing time and effort and tolerances and all that stuff that an Nkosi has. An Nkosi and an Num Num Zon, I think, really are tailor made with that in mind. Make it so, hey, this thing's easier to fucking make and assemble. And the 31 doesn't really have that. I guess one thing it does have is a one piece micarta inlay or whatever, wood inlay. And fuck, man, I don't know if that's harder to make or easier to make or harder to assemble or easier to assemble or what. But the rest of it, I don't think a stepped stop pin is easier for anything, for them to, for warranty work, to manufacture. So I don't understand why they did that. I know that Tim Reeves said that it's because the sleeved stop pin was deflecting somehow, which I gotta call bullshit on that. I don't see how the lockup on a I don't see how that's any different, because like the lockup isn't really putting that much force on the blade. What's putting force on the blade is using the knife, right? And that's putting way more pressure on the stop pin than it pinching triangulation between the pivot, the blade tang, and the lock on the stop pin. That's, I mean, yeah, it's wedged in there, but nothing compared to like using the knife, that force. So I really do call bullshit on that. And that's the thing too, is like, every manufacturer, they seem to be, especially in the age of information, which we are deep in, it, it's easy to call bullshit when they're saying we're transparent, but we also can't tell you why we did that, at the same time. And well, and I know that Chris Reeve did say, hey, you know what, the Zamzam's easier to make than a Sabenza is, um, when those first came out. Uh, and that was part of it, But yeah, in a nutshell, I would say no, no, their quality has not gone down, but their understanding maybe is a little bit less. That passion, that drive, that Chris Reeve, the man, had. It takes every level of what goes into one of these knives up uh, a notch. Um, the drive to want to understand, understand. That's another thing. It's like these aspects they're intangible. So um, it's hard to say, but and again, I'll be buying another knife at some point in the near future, and the knife that I buy right now, what's at the very top of my list to buy is double lug plain 31, because I really like my large Sabenza 21. But this thing is, in my opinion, the finest knife that Chris Reeve Knives has ever made, and that's just my opinion. And so, because of that, I'm not wanting to press this into any kind of EDC role. Like if I carry this knife, it's usually like around the house, yard work, something like that. And I'm also most likely going to have, for whatever reason, I really like my Carruthers. Carruthers? Carruthers? EDC, my Carruthers EDC. Whenever I'm carrying this knife, that way it's like that's the one I'm going to use. But so yeah, that's kind of the way that I feel about it. Again, I can't say enough that if a person wants the tolerances, the the fit and finish, which is what Chris Reeve Knives is supposed to, their claim to fame used to be, all right, that's what they used to say. I don't know that they even do say that anymore, because I think it is getting them in trouble. But then again, what else are you getting? Nostalgia, Sabenza. Oh my God, I have a Sabenza. The one that started it all, mid tech, the original mid tech or whatever it is. I don't fucking know, man. I really don't know. But I will say there's no company that, for me, that really encompasses everything that I want. The materials, they still have as good a fit and finish as anybody else. That's what's funny. This local knife store that I've mentioned to you guys, which I still need to do my little shop tour. I mean, they have like Medfords and Curtis knives and what else did they have there? A bunch of other companies. And I mean, I've looked, when I examine those knives too, I'm absolutely not seeing like still the quality of what a Chris Reeve knife offers. I'm just not seeing it. It's just little things, like the the lock bar might have a little bit of a sharper, edge on it. Just the fit and finish is not there on the other companies either. So I still would say, in my opinion, that Chris Reeve knives, they still are what I want. They're what I want in a knife, because you can't have everything. And Hoback, they had Hobacks, and I'm like looking at these fucking $900 Hoback knives, and I'm like, nope, absolutely not. The quality is not there. Like there is no fucking way like that. I would even if that Hoback was the same price as a Chris Reeve knife, and I've got 6 Chris Reeve knives sitting here in front of me, and I was going to go there to buy a new knife. No fucking way that knife would come home with me, because it's not there. The quality is not there on that, and the design doesn't make up for it, in my opinion. So yeah, everything that everything that I want is there in a Chris Reeve knife. Great grind, great, geometry. I'm telling you, I'm gonna do another Impinda video soon, and this thing has been a fucking laser beam, and I've used it for all kinds of shit. Right now, I'm doing a huge Trex deck. I've been trimming, the Trex material with it when there's like little booger left over after cutting it with my saw. And this has been just a great knife, all things considered. I can't say strongly enough that a person can't have an opinion on a knife, a real opinion on a knife, folding knife tool, if it's not carried and used 30 days, and that's not owned it for 30 days. That's carried it and used it for 30 days. So that might take some people 5 years, to get to know a knife for real. Um, the whole price, and like, oh, I can't take away the value of it. That shit has got to be not part of people's thought patterns, like it's just, I try to tell people all the time, like a, a pre-loved, which is what I call a used knife, a pre-loved fucking, not a mark on it, Sabenza already drops down in price. And then one that's completely, scuffed up and marked up. I guess this one's been refurbished. So, but oh, you know what? This guy's got a couple marks on it from carrying it with my tape measure, rubbing right there. A completely scuffed up and marked up Chris Reeve knife. The difference between a carried, used, sharpened Chris Reeve knife and a pre-loved, used, not a scratch on it, it's a small difference, $50. So that $50 is like, to me, not worth the gamble of not getting to know a knife that your initial impression of is not all that positive. A person, in my opinion, could be totally missing out on the best fit knife or EDC item of their entire life, which to me brings me a lot of joy. Like I really like to, when I'm just like, say, right now I'm doing a deck and the materials are stocked like fucking 50 yards from where I am working. So like just walking that 50 yards or whatever, I might stick my hand in my pocket and just be like, oh man, fucking this Chris Reeve knife is super nice. Or like my Martinez hammer or whatever. I might take my Martinez hammer out of my tool pouch and just be like, yeah, this is a fucking super nice tool, And it makes my day more enjoyable every single day. And so like, I don't know. That's kind of just me spitballing. But I guess in a long, long, long way of saying it, this is all in the eye of the beholder. This is all my opinion. I think they're still the knife for me. I don't see, when I'm looking down at these 6 Chris Reeve knives in front of me, I am not seeing a single one that's going to go anywhere. But when I look in my Pelican box and I see, a whole shit ton of knives over here. Actually, I did want to talk about this one. I had it handy. I see a lot of knives and I'm just like, I don't give a shit about those knives, But here's something that is an interesting contender comparison with Chris Reeve knives, and that is the handy dandy XM18. So the first thing that I would say about the XM18, as far as like comparing to a Chris Reeve knife Sabenza, is a lot of people will tout that the tolerances and fit and finish are comparable on the two knives, and I would say that is, all things considered, true. But the thing for me with the Hinderer knives, I really like this non-flipper. I don't know. I don't have a single flipper anymore, and I don't really love them. But the thing to me about the Hinderers is they're just a little too busy. They are too busy. There's just fasteners and fucking shit all over the place. I don't like the tip down option. Every maker has their own like fucking bias that they can't get past, And I don't like that with Spyderco either. I'm just like, nobody gives a shit about four-way positions. And any reviewer that like cites that as like a positive thing is like, you're just regurgitating information, like we're supposed to have a fucking opinion. And I don't know. I just don't see that. It adds to the cost of it. Fucking almost nobody uses one of the other options other than left or right. I get left or right, but um, left or right, tip up, tip down, like all that. That's just, I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. But still, though, at the end of the day, this is not a minimalist enough design for it to be like the one for me, right? Um, the quality is there. The quality is there on the hinderers. And when I look across the board and you see and you research like knives that do have the quality and fit and finish of like a Chris Reeve knife, a Sabenza, I think the 31 is a really good standby as far as like comparing knives to, because it's new and it's what you get now with the Sabenza. The 21s are quickly diminishing, but the knives that are comparable to a Chris Reeve knife, uh, they're not $450 knives. Like this, these are 500. So there's a double lug micarta small. You're paying $700-800 for a small batch knife if you can get it on the primary, and then on the secondary, it's going to be even more, maybe. Although you're starting to see like cool folks that are starting to flip their like Rich Rogers knives at cost, or flip their Holt Spectre or whatever at cost. I think, guys, there's going to be a Holt Spectre in my future. If somebody is watching this video and I like the less fancy ones. What are they? I think they call them like field grade, maybe, or something like that. But I really would like to try out a field grade Holt Spectre. I think Mick Strider, I don't give a fuck about his past. I don't give a fuck about anything like that. I want to see the SNGs come back. I don't care if he makes them or who makes them, but I would love to see the SNGs come back. They're just fantastic knives. But other than that, man, there's not anything that's really comparable. There's that what is it? The Canadian company that makes the Skaha 2. I mean, kind of comparable, but that thing's more comparable like a Spyderco, in my opinion. And it's just a very plain looking. I don't know. I'm not attracted to the aesthetics. I don't love the fasteners. I don't love the implementation of the fasteners. Yeah, it's just, I like flat scaled knives too. I don't love like a rounded scale knife. Like you'll find if you look at my knife selection, they're pretty much all going to have flat scales. And I like the way that a flat scaled knife feels in my hand for folders. For a fixed blade knife, yeah, if you really want to get behind it, yeah, you're going to want the handles scales to be a little bit rounder. But for me, for EDC, ideal for me is a chunky, wide, flat blade or handle scale. But yeah, we're getting beside the point here. Yeah, I don't think the quality has gone downhill all that much. I just think that it theoretically is, there may be a little bit less passion behind the knives. That's all, which is kind of dirty. I mean, honestly, that's not really what you want, but it's the best of what we get. So currently, but I do think there's going to be other companies knocking down the door of Chris Reeve Knives. The thing is, they're running the table, right? So like if other makers and manufacturers and whatever want to come to the table that Chris Reeve Knives is playing at, they've got a fucking lot of chips, so it's going to be really tough for anybody to compete with them, because it's not like you're going to just like go, oh, I think I'm going to retire from being a carpenter and go buy a fucking $700,000 Haas milling machine and start banging out knives. It's like, yeah, probably not going to happen. I mean, it's in the cards, but who knows? Maybe Zach Brown, make a fucking titanium frame lock, for God's sake. That ugly ass goddamn knife that you make, ridiculous. Let's look at the comments real quick. New small 21 already has flat spots on the stop pin, was actually causing the lock to stick. Yeah, the shit's not infallible. As a matter of fact, I would say, and I've said this over and over too, with the whole 21 versus 31 thing. Um, I am a believer in the ceramic ball lockup. I really am. I mean, that's not to say that it actually lasts forever. That's not to say that it actually, but if they can dial it in, the theorized, wear and all that kind of stuff, it makes a lot of sense. Um, the whole it creating a groove, all that kind of stuff. It makes a lot of sense. So you're talking about, yeah, no, I personally am a believer in it. If for me, if somebody came up to me and offered me a 21 and a 31 at the exact same price, the only way that I would choose the 21, the only way is if it was a pre-Idaho made um, 21. So I'm just talking about I can't, it might be a little dark if I get up close. So I'm just talking about no Idaho made marking on there. So ways that you can really tell with that also is, I don't know, essentially the dome screws. So if you see a Sabenza 21 that doesn't have holes drilled through it on the lock bar side, fucking buy it. Like I just buy it. Even if you don't have the funds, you're not going to lose money on that. Um, and these knives, most people don't realize that they are the best knives that Chris Reeve Knives makes or has made. It's just the truth. Um, so yeah, because what you're getting there with is no perforations in the washers, no openings in this hardware for shit to get in there. You're just getting an all around better knife. The clips have a little bit of a thicker stock to them. Actually, kind of a lot thicker. I'm not going to be able to show that here. Maybe no, you're not going to be able to see that. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, you just are getting a lot of things. Anyway, a 2018 Sabenza 21 versus a 31, 10 out of 10 times, I personally would choose the 31. Again, though, if it's like your one and only, and it's going to be your everyday driver, I would 10 out of it wouldn't I wouldn't choose any 21 over a 31. But that's just me, because the nitpicky fucking details between, like, a stepped stop pin versus a sleeve stop pin versus perforated washers versus all this other shit. The wear parts is the lock, so like the longevity and like that thing having a solid lockup and having a decreased amount of wear through openings and closings, uh, a slightly harder heat treat on the S35 VN, that's going to bump up your life of the blade, of the edge. All those things, to me, make the 31 the better user. Now, if you're going to get two Chris Reeve knives and they're both users or whatever it is, however you want to convince yourself that that's a good idea, um, then maybe start considering a 21 for your like weekend knife or whatever it is that your second knife is for. I'm a crazy person, so like I don't even fucking bullshit myself into that anymore. I don't think. I'm just kind of like, I fucking want another knife, and if I buy another one, that's going to cut down the wear on this other knife because I'll be carrying it less, and that will last longer. And I just fucking bunch of bullshit. But but I don't really even do that anymore. I'm just kind of like, I want to try the slip joint or whatever it is. Um, but and I'm going to do maybe. I mean, the next knife review that I do is going to be talking more about the Impinda, and just it's working out much better than I ever thought it would. Um, but what's really cool is what I have coming in the mail today. I have an Okluma DCO titanium coming today. What? That I've been waiting for quite a while, that finally shipped. Those things are rare as hen's teeth. And I, yeah, I'll just leave it there. So I probably will be doing an unboxing. I will be doing an unboxing of that tonight. And I'm super pumped on that. I'm not like a super knife dork or a flashlight dork, but I do like my lights. And I've got a few different lights, mostly Surefires at this point. Yeah, almost all Surefires at this point. But yeah, that'll be the next video, you guys. Uh, Questions, comments, concerns, any smart remarks are always appreciated, you guys. And palabra a tu madre, boys and girls.